the project CESBA MED, what are our targets and what we achieved, and in particular also the context of the project. So I will start from a very high level. So I will start from the Agenda 2030 for the sustainable development. You know that sustainable development is an issue that concerns our all. It's not only a French issue or an Italian issue or a European issue, it's a global issue. So it means that we have common sustainability goals that we have to achieve in the next period. And one of those goals concerns the sustainability of cities and communities. And so we have to work together in achieving those goals. And this specific goal is not standing alone. It is strongly related to many others. It concerns also the climate change, the energy issues, and so on. And I apologize, the slide is in Italian. I didn't have the time to translate it, but the idea here is to show you that this kind of result can only be achieved if all the stakeholders, everyone will work together. It's not possible that only the policy side moves toward a better sustainability, but the policy side should work with the industry, with the market, with research, etc. So we have to make a joint effort locally and globally to achieve those goals. And of course we need to fix specific targets. We have to set specific objectives. It's not only a matter to say we want to be more sustainable. Okay, we want to reduce the consumption of energy of this level of kilowatt hours. We want to reduce the emissions CO2 by this level of kilogram of CO2 per square meter, and so on. So we need to fix clear, measurable, verifiable targets in our policies, programs, and actions plan, both globally and also locally, because this is, a joint effort. And here comes the role of the assessment tools. We are in the field of the built environment, and maybe you well know that there are many systems for measuring the sustainability, for instance, at building scale. The Rademash BDM is one of them. In Italy, for instance, we have a system that is public, owned by the regions, that is named Protocollo Itaca. Consider that in Europe there are almost 60 systems of this kind. And this system can be used in policies to fix the targets, to support a subsidy program. If you reach this level of sustainability measure with this tool, I will give you an incentivation, I will give you a permission, etc. So the assessment tools allows to set clear targets, but not only at building scale. In our project, we addressed the issue to have systems able to fix those kind of targets at urban scale. So for neighborhoods, not only for buildings. This is the most innovative aspect of the project. So developing an assessment tool for neighborhoods to support cities and citizens in fixing their targets and to achieve them. But in the same time, we said, okay, but we are part of a global process. So it does not mean any sense if in Marseille we use a system, in Barcelona we use another one, in Athens another one, in Torino another one, and we are not able to compare the results, to talk each other. We need to have an harmonized approach. We need to have systems that talk each other, that allows us to share our experience and to set for common targets, for instance in the Mediterranean area or in the European area, or why not at the global level. So harmonization is a key issue in this field. And this project is called CESBA MED, Sustainable Cities. CESBA is an initiative that was launched some years ago, almost 10 years ago, in the Catalan delegation in Brussels. It was the 2011. And this process is participated by public authorities and research bodies, and the aim is to create a set of harmonized assessment tools at all scales to support policies in the field of sustainable development. CESBA stands for Common European Sustainable Built Environment Assessment. We focus in this project on the urban scale, as said, because it is a scale that allows us to optimize interventions. Because if you think to solve problems of sustainability, acting building by building is not a good way. Acting at the urban scale, it's possible to create synergies among buildings, so to exploit potentials that building by building is not possible. But when you act at urban scale, things are much more complicated because there are lots of variables. You need to take lots of decisions with different stakeholders. So the decision-making process is very complicated. So what we did in our project has been to work also on a decision-making process and to support it through the use of assessment systems to reach the sustainability development goal of cities in an harmonized transnational way. So the project is participated by 12 partners from 7 countries. The project will end this November. So now we are in the capitalization phase and we concluded the technical work. So we developed this assessment tool that I will show you in the key principles for measuring, assessing, rating the sustainability of neighborhoods, together with a decision-making process model, a model of decision-making process for cities, in the way that they can use this tool to support the integrated planning activities and to share with other cities. As already said, we start from 2 key principles. First of all, the assessment systems must reflect the local context. We can't use one system, the same one for all the cities in the Mediterranean. We have very different cities with different stories and so on, so each city must have a totally contextualized tool reflecting the local conditions. But in the same time, those systems must have a dialogue, must give the possibility to compare the results. So we work on a harmonization strategy. We defined a sort of a transnational generic system that can be used to set up a local system. Starting from the same source, all the local systems will be harmonized. And in the same time, we defined a set of key performance indicators, so indicators that are common in all the local systems, to share the results through a reporting document that we called the Neighborhood Passport. We had a lot of discussions also to define what is a neighborhood, because, you know, we have also cities of different sizes in the project. Just to tell, we have 2 Italian cities. One is Udine, that is a small city. The other one is Torino. They have a very different size. So a neighborhood of Torino risks to be half of Udine in terms of size. So we discussed about what is a neighborhood, and we also fixed some key elements, very flexible, in terms of inhabitants and time to cross the neighborhood and so on. But it's a very generic guidance. So we defined this generic framework to establish this common language. So the principle is we define this multi-criteria assessment system with a common assessment methodology at transnational level. It is composed by almost 180 criteria. So it's a lot of criteria. But any city will never use all of them. The principle is that each city will select from this library the criteria that fits more with their policies, with their targets. So through a contextualization process, it's possible to create specific systems for the different cities. But coming from the same source, they are compatible. The system is organized in modules that we call issues. Each module is also articulated in categories, and inside the categories we have the indicators. These are the 7 issues or modules. We deal with the urban morphology, economic aspects, energy, atmospheric emissions, use of non-renewable sources, environment, and social aspects. Here you have a view about the categories contained in each of the 7 modules. Everything will be published on the website of the project, so all those documents are public, open source, accessible, so you can download them and you can have a look. How it is set up, a local system? So we start from the generic framework. And for instance, if Torino or Marseille want to create an assessment system to measure the sustainability of a neighborhood, the first thing they have to do is to select the criteria from the whole library. And then to associate to each criterion a performance scale. And then to associate to each criterion a weight to reflect what is more important in this city. And the weights will be different city by city because we have probably different priorities. And also the performance scales will be different. We can't have the same performance scales because the performance scale is always local, depends on the local situation. And through this process, we'll have the specific assessment tool. The usual size of a system is around 40 criteria. Our partners produce 9 assessment tools for 9 cities. We have done an analysis, and this is the mean size of the tools used. The system uses performance scales on several steps from -1 up to 5. So each criterion on the base of the value of its indicator could be an emission of CO2, proximity of services, presence of green areas, permeability of land, quality of public transportation. We have really a lot of different criteria that are calculated through quantitative indicators. At the end, through this calculation, to each single criterion, it is associated a score. This score represents how better is how is performing the neighborhood. If it is get 0, it's really minimum performance. It is negative, oh, there's something to do. If the score is higher, okay, we are better than the minimum acceptable. 5 is really the top, the best situation. Quite never you reach a 5. Just to show how it works, the performance scale, the principle is we associate a value to the score 0, what is the minimum acceptable performance in terms of permeability, number of percentage of people that is less than 400 meters from a school, or whatever, efficiency, energy efficiency of buildings. In this case, this example is concerning the connectivity of pedestrian street and walkways. So how much is possible to move by bicycle, by foot, in this, walking in this neighborhood. And you need, for instance, to associate a number of intersections per square meter, per square kilometer, in the way to reflect how many crossroads you have. Lower the number of crossroads, more you will use a car. Venice is the most pedestrian city in the world, has a very high number of intersections. 180 that you see here for the level 5 is typical of the center of middle-aged European cities, like in Barcelona, like the old town in Marseille, like in Florence. This is typical, and you move by walking in those centers. 50 is the minimum acceptable. If it is less than 50, you will have to take a car. You can't walk, or you will have only one path to reach. So this is just to show how it works. And then each criterion is associated to a weight. The weight reflects its importance. So we'll have, for instance, 40 criteria. The 40 criteria will be associated to 40 indicators. We calculate different indicators. To each indicator, at the end, it is associated a score, -1 up to 5. And then the score are aggregated through the weighted sums, because to each criterion it is associated weight, up to reach a score for the categories, for the 7 issues, if you want also a final total score for the neighborhood. That can be represented through diagrams, like this one. So you have the possibility to analyze the results shift But this tool can be used also, for instance, for diagnosis purposes. So I want to know how is the sustainability level of this specific neighborhood. I am the city. I want to know how is performing this neighborhood. I use the system. I carry out a diagnosis. I understand what are the problems. I can use the system to fix my targets. I want to improve mobility from this level to this level. I want to reduce the consumption of building from this level to this level. I want to improve the quantity of green areas from this level to this level. So in this way, you fix clear, measurable targets, and you can make overlaps between the actual situation, the future situation, driving also the planning activities. And all this process can be done in a participated way. Because in the moment the city decides what criteria to include in the system, this can be done with the inhabitants in the neighborhood or with the other stakeholders so that we can share what are the most important targets and issues. And also when you fix the weight, you can have a dialogue with the inhabitants to say, okay, for you it is more important mobility, green areas or other. To support the test of this system, we have produced, it has not been an easy task because Excel is not really the best tool in the world but for the macro, but we produce a software that is able to generate the local tools to be tested, to be used on by cities, and as said, we test the system on 9 cities. Each city set up a local system, test the tool on an area, simulating this decision-making process. So we said, okay, this is the local approach. Each city define the system starting from the same source. Okay, in any case, the systems are compatible. But we want to compare the results among Torino, Marseille, Barcelona, Athens, Zagreb, etc. So we said, okay, why don't we decide that a group of criteria are mandatory. So in the moment Marseille decides to set up its own system, they can choose any number of criteria from the common library, but 20 indicators are mandatory. And why those 20? Because are the 20 more relevant for the transnational policies, more relevant to the SDGs. Here comes the connection between the local and the global level. So we had lots of discussion to define what are those 20. We had also some interaction with other actors. For instance, we went to present the system at UN Environment, United Nations Environment in Paris. Actually, we are collaborating with them on an award concerning the Mediterranean cities. It is called the Istanbul Environmental City Award that will be launched shortly. And of course there is lots of interest from transnational networks among the idea to have common indicators for cities. So we had lots of discussions about the indicators to be selected. Of course everyone should measure the indicators using the same calculation methodology. If not, the comparison is not possible. And so if here we have the different systems for the different cities of different size, the system and the cities, the red dot are the common indicators. So there is a common denominator, a common core. So that at the end of an assessment, you will get 2 results. A local, so let's say, certificate, assessment report showing the score that has a local value because it is based on the local criteria, weight, performance scale, plus a passport. The passport is the translational document to compare the results among cities. And the passport contains the value of the common indicators. So this is the document that allows us to share our information among the performance of neighborhoods, but also about buildings. Because in the project, we not only address the urban scale, but also the building scale, in the concept that in the moment you want to renovate a public building, for instance, you can't do it not taking into account the surrounding area. You must think the building in its context to understand if it's possible to create synergies in the area. And also, of course, we developed a graphic version of the passport where On the left, you see the score reached in the different issues. On the right, you see the list of the key performance indicators, and there are some colors beside the indicators in green, yellow, red, that shows how these indicators the value is with regard to the mean of the Mediterranean space. We work on the, as said, on a decision-making process, so we ask the cities participating in the project and the cities involved through the partners to simulate the decision-making process for the renovation of an area. So the pilot case has been also simulation of a decision-making. So the first thing is, okay, identify an area in the city that you want to renovate, set up the system for this area, then carry out a diagnosis using the system for measuring the actual performance of the neighborhood. On the basis of the results, do a SWOT analysis to identify the strength points of this area, the weaknesses, the opportunities for improving the sustainability. And at the end, fix the targets, define scenarios, and using the system, select the best scenario. So we have supported in this way the city to define a strategic concept. We did lots of complementary activities to this one, of course. We are working on policy papers. We define a training system. We have an e-learning platform. We organize info days in different cities, co-creation labs. We had sprint workshops involving also projects from different programs. We had one in Malta in September. We are interacting with the DG Environment because they are very interested about this harmonization of indicators. We had DG Environment at the kickoff meeting of our project. We also participated in several events in Brussels talking about CESBA MED. We had also this interaction with UN Environment that started from the global level, then we are interacting with the MAP, so it is the Barcelona Convention unit that is in Athens. We are working with them on this Istanbul Award. And we also manage a neighborhood award. Yesterday we had the jury selecting the winner. I don't know still who won, but maybe someone will tell later. And we'll give the prize during a conference in Italy in mid-June. We went also outside Europe. I have to thank our project officer because he's very open about our participation in different places around the world. So in 2017 we went in Hong Kong to discuss this approach with colleagues from really all the world. And by the way, this 8-9 April will be at United Nations again, this time at the Palais des Nations in Geneva. I don't know how is Geneva in English. There is the United Nations Day of Cities. There will be 50 mayors from all around Europe, and we'll present our results to them in the exhibition area. And we'll work also with other colleagues from outside Europe and with the UN Environment as observer to capitalize the results of our projects at global level to take this approach from the Mediterranean space really to the international level. Okay, I finished. Thank you.